there's a point in every fire where I'm like, uh-oh, that's not good. Welcome back, guys. Nate here with Murray Farm and Ranch. Saturday morning here. I can't say it's a beautiful morning. We do not have any wind. It is below freezing. Everything is a sheet of ice. This is not snow. We had basically just a downpouring of sleet and rain 5 days ago, and it hasn't been above freezing since. And so this is just, I don't know if you can tell, but it's shiny, slick ice. It's kind of like, it's like a skating rink here. But you have to play the cards that you're dealt. And one of the things that I like to do whenever we have weather like this is burn some brush piles. And where we live in Oklahoma, we live in what's called the cross timbers area, which is a mix of brushy plains and post oak and blackjack oak trees. And so there's a lot of scrubby brush, and that stuff catches on fire like crazy. So you have to really plan out your burns and do it on days where it's we have appropriate weather for it. And I feel like today is a day that makes sense, because it's going to be pretty hard for a fire to get away whenever there's a 2-inch sheet of ice over everything. So I'm gonna get in the old skid steer. I've got me some supplies to start the burn, and I'm gonna go over to one of the burn piles that I've been pushing together. Last winter, when I had COVID, I was on quarantine for like 10 days. And after about the third day, I didn't really feel that bad. And so I spent 8 hours of every day for the next 7 days of my skid steer. And I did a lot of work. I piled up some big brush piles. And I've got one back over this way that is prime time for burning. And so I'm going to go get that booger bear going. And I'm going to use the skid steer to push the pile in and get it nice and tight, keep it burning. And hopefully when we're done, we'll just have a big pile of ash and biochar, and I'll spread that out, give a ground a little bit of nutrient, some carbon, and have one brush pile down. So let's go get started. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm inside the skid steer, driving over to this brush pile, and I wanted to talk a minute about this skid steer. I purchased this skid steer a couple of years ago, and I really struggled with making the decision to buy this thing. It was a lot of money. I purchased it used from a dealer, and it was a huge investment for me. And I had been looking at them for a couple of years, and I kept talking myself out of it because it was expensive, and I kept thinking, I should be putting the money towards, getting things paid off and so forth. And this is one of the couple of things that I have financed. I did put a huge amount down on it, but I did finance it. Financed it for 4 years, and I'll tell you, I have not regretted purchasing this thing. And there's a couple of reasons. One is it is cabbed, which gives me a place to work whenever it's not nice outside. My tractor is not cabbed, and so I can get a lot of work done. If it's sprinkling, if it's super cold, super windy, dusty, I get inside here and I'm still have a productive day, which is awesome. And I purchased a machine that is tracked, and that gives me a lot better stability on the ground, and I can do things in this that I just cannot do with my tractor. My tractor is a 2-wheel drive tractor, and this thing has just been super awesome for our farm. I have quite a few implements for it, and so overall, I feel like the skid steer has been an amazing investment. And I do work as a physician assistant, but I have accumulated enough equipment now that honestly, I mean, if I wanted to run a skid steer business, I could probably do it, which is very nice in the environment that we live in, because I always like to know that I can kind of give the man the middle finger and walk away from a job at any moment and not feel bad about it. And having this skid steer and the farm is just one way for me to be less dependent on the man, more dependent on myself. And man, I encourage you to have a side hustle. I encourage you to be as self-sufficient as possible, because you never know what something's going to throw at you. And I don't know, this skid steer has given me the ability to dictate more of what I want to do should it come to that. So anyway, alright guys, so I got my propane torch right here. I love using the propane torch for starting these brush pile fires. Today we've got like a very, very mild north wind, and so I'm starting on the south end of this brush pile, and I'm going to kind of burn into the wind. And the reason why I like to do that is I don't feel like the fire moves quite as fast, and I can kind of get around this brush pile and push it in. I mean, the likelihood of this thing getting out of control is pretty small, but there is still some dry matter on this ground. And so what I want to do is as this fire kind of moves in, I'm going to kind of push the pile in with the skid steer, and hopefully that'll keep a nice border around this so it doesn't try to get out from from control of it. We want to keep control of this thing for sure. I have been involved in a couple of different fires that went awry that required some fire trucks, and it's pretty humbling and embarrassing when that happens. So we're gonna do our best to keep this one in parameters today. That is a hot fire, tell you what. And those flames are probably like at least 50 feet tall now. But as this thing burns down, I'll start to, as the flames get a little lower, I'll start getting closer with the skid steer, and I'll kind of push the pile on top of itself, and it'll burn down. And hopefully when all that's left is just a nice pile of ashes when this is all done. Does not matter how many times I do this, there's a point in every fire where I'm like, uh-oh, that's not good. Doesn't matter how good the conditions are, how good of a perimeter I've set up, it just doesn't matter. There's always a point where like flames are 40 or 50 feet high, and I'm like, well, that might get away from me. Thankfully today is not that day. Burning down nicely back there, and when all this, I'll let it do this all day, and then tomorrow I'll come in and I'll push the pile in a little bit, and I'll make sure that any of the stuff that's left over gets thrown on top. I'll get it started back, and I'll just keep burning it down. And basically over about a 3-day time frame, everything will burn up. I mean, it'll just be a pile of ashes and biochar. And then I'll take my box blade and I'll spread that in this pasture. This pasture was honestly pathetic. It was super grown up with saplings and briars and blackberries and covered in little scrubby oak trees, and I'm basically trying to reclaim it. You know, it's probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 acres back here that was just almost unusable. You know, cows would come back here and graze a little bit, but part of my rotational system is I want to make every pasture productive, and I don't want cows to come in here and just pick and choose. I want them to come in here and hit it really hard and then stay off of it for about 60 days. And so in order for me to make it, you know, productive for the cows, I gotta clean this place up and get all this, you know, this brambles and stuff out of here. So I feel like it's looking pretty good. Not too bad of a Saturday. It is still cold. I mean, it's still below freezing, but wind's not blowing, so it's very tolerable today. Well, I think we're finally out of the danger zone. Got a nice little border kind of pushed around the fire. Got her all piled in here. Well, our fire has just about burned down. We have a really nice big pile of ashes, and this, as the pile burned down, I pushed dirt over the top, and I push all the brush in and all the leftover pieces, and it smolders and it just gets super hot, and anything that doesn't burn up kind of turns into what's called biochar. And biochar is a pretty good asset to your ground because it's very porous and it holds a tremendous amount of water. And so on these piles that I'm doing, you know, I burn these things all over the place because everywhere where I clean up, I burn a pile and I spread it out. And you know, you're adding some organic matter to the soil. You're adding some, you know, of course, potash, and this biochar, and we're exposing ground that was hurting, and so it grew up brush. And now that, you know, we're reclaiming this pasture, we're going to treat it right, and it's going to grow up into some lush grass that will feed cows, that will ultimately feed families. And so, you know, what we're doing is practicing what's called regenerative agriculture. And I believe that it's the future of farming. I don't believe that the future of farming has anything to do with thousands and thousands of acres of corn or soybeans. I believe that the future of farming has to do with people like me that have a few hundred acres and make that few hundred acres productive and add something back to the environment, so that make this land better than how I got it. But guys, thanks so much for following along today with me on really, you know, just a day on the farm. I mean, this is nothing special. A lot of my videos are teaching you guys how to do something or how I do something, and this is really just a video log of the day. Every day that we're out here, we're trying to do something productive for the farm, and there's only so much that you can do whenever you're covered in ice, you know, 2 inches thick of ice, and it's below freezing. But we found a good way to utilize our time today, and that's what it's all about, just being productive, making the place better. And I can't wait to see what this pasture looks like in the spring. I'm gonna get everything cut down. I may overseed it with some cover crop, and you know, I feel like what we're doing is making our place better. And like I said, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe for future content. I will see you back on the next one. God bless.